Hey, hey, how's everybody doing? Um, it is Matthew on Mondays. Look at the lectionary gospel text for year A. Today we are going to take a quick look at Matthew 1:18 through 25, which is the gospel reading for Advent 4, which is coming up this Sunday. And then we're also going to turn our attention to the Epiphany text, Matthew 2 1 through 12, kind of get a bookend here for these two texts in these two chapters. So that's what we're going to do. We started talking about Matthew 1:18 through 25 last week, but my computer decided just to shut down in the middle of that. So we will hope that that doesn't happen again. But we can take a look at Matthew 1:18 through 25 real quickly. I'll pull up the text here. So you'll recall that this comes right after the opening genealogy, where we hear the genealogy or the genesis of Jesus the Messiah. Then in 18, we have now the birth of Jesus the Messiah. Wanted to note that these words, birth and genealogy, have the same root, nearly the same word in the Greek. Then you have Jesus the Messiah again, connecting those two parts of the text. And it's so the birth of Jesus the Messiah took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been engaged to Joseph, before they lived together, she was found to be pregnant by the Holy Spirit. Her husband Joseph, being a righteous man and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to divorce her quietly. But just when he had resolved to do this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." All this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. "Look, the virgin shall become pregnant and give birth to a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel," which means God with us. When Joseph woke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took her as his wife, but had no marital relations with her until she had given birth to a son, and he named him Jesus. So the couple things that I just wanted to circle back on with this text, which I think are kind of maybe the relevant or interesting kind of application pieces for us today. One is the calling of Joseph as a righteous man, uh, and how we might dig into what righteousness meant, how righteousness and justice are tied together in by the root word in Greek. Um, Pretty much could be translated either way. Um, if you look at the Latin or Spanish Bible, you'll see, um, you know, the root going to the kind of justice word um, more, because that's what's more prominent in that language. So you have righteousness or just. So her husband Joseph being a just man, a righteous man. And so one of the things we see is that when we think about righteousness, especially when we start in the New Testament, looking at righteousness from through the Gospels and of Matthew, and then into Romans, you have righteousness and justice as relational terms. They speak about a relationship that you have, and so in Joseph's relationship with his wife, um, or soon to be wife in this term, he he enacts justice, or he enacts righteousness, and it involves not only doing right but also being merciful. Let's see. Marcy's here. Hey, Marcy.
Hey,
How's it going?
it's good. How are you?
I'm good. What you been up
Good.
to?
Uh, all of that holiday stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
holiday
It's
stuff.
crazy.
It's just,
It's crazy.
yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so dark. Hold on. Well, keep talking. I'm just going to turn on the light
No,
because.
I was just I was just going to kind of what I thought were a couple interesting things. I think this terminology of righteousness um,
Yes, yes.
about Joseph is interesting. I think that as you follow it through Matthew, what this word righteousness and what it comes to mean and how it's emphasized, it kind of takes on an interesting. It's interesting that it's brought up here, and that the first person called righteous is Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus will be called righteous. John will be called righteous. The idea that our righteousness should exceed that of the Pharisees and Sadducees comes up in the Sermon on the Mount.
Right.
Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, and that also that it gets paired with this kind of merciful acts, at least by that time's standards, whether
Yeah.
whether we would think that nowadays or not, I don't know, but and then of course the people claim to be righteous by the end of the book, besides Jesus, are the story of the sheep and the goats in Matthew 25, those who
Right.
recognize those who feed and clothe and give water to and visit in prison are the righteous, who Jesus says they, when you saw me.
Right. Right.
So
And of course, that's the big emphasis of our church.
right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's all interesting. I'll just say I missed last week, and I know you text. I just, for what it's
Yeah.
worth, I'm really intrigued by the dream imagery throughout this
Mhm.
passage,
Right.
and all the way through. Came to a minute, how Joseph is, how he is a vehicle in this story, through these and God is speaking to him through these dreams,
Right.
which I think is, to me, that's a fascinating element of the story.
Right.
Just fascinating. So anyway, that's
Especially moving into chapter 2
right.
as well.
Right.
You have the multiple dream sequences to go to Egypt, to come back from Egypt.
Right.
He has a dream to move to Nazareth too, right? Or is that
right? Exactly. Yeah.
right?
Isn't that maybe the last one? I think. The last, return from Egypt, and what did he say? Yeah, made his home in a town called Nazareth. Oh,
right.
My light went out. Okay, plunged in darkness.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah,
These lights are just going out.
Well, and then I was listening to some. Speaking of the dreams, the prophecy fulfillments, the women, that all those come in fives, and so they kind of, someone was suggesting that is kind of intentionally trying to call back to the 5 books of Moses.
Oh, wow.
And put that number in there. And then of course there's 5 major discourses
right
in Matthew, so that
in
there's
Matthew,
5 of 5 books. Oh shoot. Mark's
like, what are y'all talking
about? Mark's been hanging out. Mark's been in the green room. I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you come in.
That's right. It kept on saying it was having connection problems, and y'all was acting crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, they had you in the green room. All right. Well, yeah. Well, and yeah, I probably it's probably
Wait, say, Darren, say about the. Tell me about the. Maybe I'm just not counting the 5 women.
well. So there's 4 women in the genealogy, and then Mary.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mary becomes the 5th.
The 5th woman. All right.
Yeah.
I just think it's as more and more we study, the more I see the Gospels, well, in Matthew, it's not only count. I see it as countercultural.
Mhm.
It's the fact that genealogy mentions the women, and then with this story from last week that we're discussing now, that that um, that God's plan bypasses the culture. Joseph was going to do what's right, but that's right by the culture, and the plan is that the culture gets bypassed, patriarchy gets bypassed. Because even if he divorces her quietly, the social and economic situation for Mary would not have been good at all. So even if he doesn't make it public, it's still she's still at a real social, economic, and social disadvantage.
Right.
And I want to say also, just speaking to that countercultural, I follow on Instagram Black Liturgies, and she's doing a whole Advent thing. And the thing she said yesterday, pay attention to the silence of the men in the Christmas story. She's weaving also Luke. She said, Zechariah can't speak, Joe doesn't speak, while the words and emotions of Mary and Elizabeth take their rightful place. The sound of Advent is the voice of women. Silence is a divine recentering.
Who is she?
So I thought that was really interesting too.
Well,
The men that drive the story, and she's suggesting that in this Advent, these stories, it's the women that drive.
I mean, that's a good object. Who is she? Who's that you're referring to?
Her name is Cole Arthur Riley, and she does this blog on Instagram called, and she centers Blackness and African American tradition as she writes liturgy poems. She's very good. I have her book, This Here Flesh. She just wrote. It's a part memoir, part kind of compilation of the work that she's done. I just haven't started it. I got it a couple of weeks ago, and I got to read. But yeah, she's fabulous, and her posts are always.
Send me a link. I like to take a look at that.
Sure.
Well, then you have these in the next chapter, which we might talk about next week. You also have the women, who cry out in Bethlehem after the slaughter of the innocents. So you
right.
The daughters of Rachel who will not be, who will not be silent. So you probably absolutely. the only men that speak are the Magi, right? I mean, the Magi.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess Herod.
Yeah. Herod.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
And actually, just so you know, I'm playing Mary in The Little Drummer Boy. I have 5 lines at the end of the play. So I know, Darren,
you're playing and the drummer boy?
I'm playing Mary. So
I thought you said you're playing Mary and the drummer boy. I was like, dang.
That I like to see.
I have like 5 lines. I have 5 lines of dialogue with the drummer boy. So, but it's I gotta get ready. I gotta know my lines. She's like, Marcy, you're not solemn enough. Mary just gave birth. She's tired. Because I'm like, oh, have you come to see the baby? And she's like, I don't think Mary would say it like that, Marcy. Work on your character. I'm like, oh God. Okay, yeah, I will.
That's funny.
So next is Broadway for you then. Oh,
Yeah,
good stuff,
I think
man.
so.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
And I was, the other thing I think about with, I think it was, who was it that said this? Maybe it was Eugene Boring,
Oh,
in the
yeah.
said, was talking about how Joseph, speaking of this countercultural point, that Joseph kind of, by being highlighted here, and what he ends up doing by, like you're saying, like he doesn't follow the letter of the law, he listens to what
Right.
God is calling him to, is kind of the personification of, oh, this dynamic that comes up all the time in Matthew. You've heard that it was said in those ancient, to those of ancient times, but I say to you that, that in many ways, like Joseph is, the first to kick off that kind of, that kind of dynamic by,
Yeah.
So I
by
guess
knowing,
Matthew like
by
sets the
knowing what
stage.
was told to him, knowing the status quo, knowing what the people said of ancient times, but hearing God call him to something different, then I thought this quote was interesting from I think I got it from the Connections book, but it's Lauren
Oh.
Winner. She's written.
Lauren Winner, she's great too. Oh my God.
Yeah, she's from
there too.
She went to UVA, right? I think she's anyway. I think
she went to UVA. She got her PhD or master's or something at Duke. But her memoir, when Girl Meets God, I think is fantastic. It's like incredible. Because she was Jewish and converted to Christianity. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
She says, are our congregations embracing the culturally appropriate good deed, but not yet undertaking the bolder, riskier, and more excessively good deed?
Right.
Like there's a sense that Joseph is trying to do right and good within the law, but then he gets called to do the even more riskier and just thing.
And Darren, that's an excellent point, because I mean what he does is riskier for him as well as riskier for Mary. But this theme throughout Matthew is riskier. It is riskier to bypass culture. It is riskier to go
against the grain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It still is.
Yeah.
It still is.
Well, that seems like a good segue into the next chapter.
Okay.
Right. Because really, when we start considering things being riskier, we get right into. I don't think I'll read this whole thing, but I'll put we'll put it up there. I think just to say, just to kick off that, in the time of Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem, Magi from the east came. Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? And then, of course, saying this to King Herod, who literally was, called King of the Jews and desired more than anything to be King of the Jews, and went to Rome on a number of occasions trying to making sure that he was, thought of as King of the Jews. So, right away putting yourself in, they're putting themselves in a risky situation, at least. So this is a pretty common story. So, but anything you all thought about out of this one?
Trying to find. Did y'all see the questions I sent yesterday?
Yes. Yeah. I have them here too.
Yeah. I think that's where my thoughts lie.
Right. I can drop. if I remember how to do things right, I can try. I can drop one in the. This was the first
Well, I
one you were
think
saying.
I'm always, just that last line. Again, the dream imagery, but they decided in a lot of ways. This is again the risk, the countercultural.
Yeah.
They decided to go another way.
Right.
I'm always that's a fascinating line to me always, that they just were like, and again, the dream. Yeah, the dream is back.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, Herod told them to come and report back, and they're like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. So
Right.
probably risky for them.
Yeah.
I mean, he went after the babies, but I mean, I'm wondering if they thought to themselves, he could put out something against us as well. He
Against
told us
us
to come
too.
back.
Yeah. Yeah.
We defied him, basically. We defied him. And I know I was reading, maybe it was in a discussion about what their official role was. Maybe it was actually in the it's actually in the from generation to generation. The sermon where they talk about, were they royalty, astrologers, sorcerers, alchemists, philosophers. Despite the vagueness of their identities, we learn much from their actions. And to evade Herod's deception, choosing what is perhaps a more difficult journey home by a different route. So again, that makes me think, when we're called to do difficult things, and we may, we have to go a different way and defy some people and upend some expectations, and so that's always my takeaway from that part of the story.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly right.
Well, I think it's helpful to think of them probably more accurately as, not too dissimilar to the scribes and the people that Pharaoh calls. I mean, that Herod calls around him. I mean, just being different in the sense that they have, that they have that instead of looking to a certain set of texts that have formed that tradition, they look to, the stars or other traditions. And I say that just to say that I think like it emphasizes again the riskiness of what they're doing, because, they're not kings, they're not royalty. They're not, they're not coming from another place and going back, with a whole. Well, I mean, there are some interesting adaptations of the story that have them coming with full armies and like encircling Jerusalem, but I don't think. Yeah. There's some.
Because in this, because in generation to generation, they say were there three or many. Did they have an entourage with them and all that stuff? So I didn't realize that there was.
Yeah, there's. I saw. I should have sent it, but I didn't see it till late. But I saw there's someone who's written a book about the Magi, and I saw an interview with him, and he was talking about kind of some of the history, as people elaborate on these 12 verses they get a life of their own, out through time, they get named, they get all kinds of things. But I mean, I think not only do they take the risk of going home a different way for incurring Herod's wrath, but they also, they also have an opportunity in following through with Herod to potentially, hook themselves up,
Right.
There's an opportunity there, there's a good chance that they could be brought into Herod's court and brought, and you're going from the city, the palace, the, that whole scenario down to, you know, some house in a tiny little Bethlehem, you know, with this, you know, this woman and her baby, and you're choosing to be, you know, to be in solidarity with them as opposed to all of that power and all that money and all that possibility, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why I formed my questions the way I did about Jesus versus the power structure. And I guess I have this picture in my mind. If I could do a picture of this, I would have Jerusalem as the picture exaggerate, and Jerusalem's size would be exaggerated as opposed to the little town. Because I think that's what Matthew is doing.
Right.
You know, it's the power structure versus the new way, the alternative way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because it kind of goes back again to what, you know, the quote about Joseph's choices too. You know, I mean, it's like you have to choose. I mean, I can see this being you know, this is playing out all the time in people's lives. You know, you have opportunities to align yourself with, you know, with power, with money, with, you know, all these things. And what the gospel is asking you to do is be in solidarity with, you know, the poor mother, or the, you know, or the you know, the you know, the child, the small town, the, you know, those who are about to be massacred, you know. And
definitely.
And I think, I think what you're saying, Marcia, too, you could really, you know, you could really go through a whole thing about dreams, you know. And do we have the imagination? Do we have the dreams that will keep us making the right choices, you know, that will inspire us to make the right choices? Do we, you know?
And are we creating the environment for dreams? Are we sustaining in our churches those who are visionaries? Are we creating an environment for people to dream?
Right. Yeah.
I'm thinking about, I have a devotion that I use. It's a lectionary devotion, and I think the Isaiah text this week, it follows. And so I was reading one of the entries, and I think the Isaiah text this week is it Ahaz? We're not asked God. They tell him to ask God for a sign, and he said no, he wasn't going to put God to the test. And the writer of this devotion said, you know, God was not happy. I mean, he was trying to do the right thing, but God said, you know, I will send you a sign. He was like, no, I'm not going to ask for a sign. And the writer suggested this week as a spiritual practice that we ask God to give us a sign, and then, you know, give us a dream that guides us and reveals to us the things that God wants us to do. And I know it was just interesting the way the writer said, you know, God was not happy with him when he said, no, I'll give you a sign. No, I'm not going to do it. But I think about you, Mark, and what you said about do we allow space to receive from God and ask from God dreams and signs, because I think it's hard with the social media and the blue light, and you're always engaged and talking, but do we? And this is, you know, a lot of the stuff I'm reading now is about this whole idea of embracing winter and embracing the darkness and silence, and giving ourselves space to ask and receive from God those things that we may be kind of disengaged from. So
I think that's important. I think you know, we have to allow ourselves, our spirits, our minds to be open to the possibilities and see the possibilities. I mean, I talk about a lot in photography and that, that first of all, you have to get out. You have to get outside. You have to feel nature and feel the wind and smell the flowers and taste the food and make yourself available. Because I think God speaks. I think like you're saying, Marcy, we're so distracted by the social media, by whatever, that we miss the small still voice because we're just so caught up.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I was, no. I was going to say, that if you really want to, embrace that winter and darkness, because you're in the wrong state. You don't know nothing about it.
I know. Oh, I know, right? You're like, oh wait, I can tell you about the winter and the darkness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I forgot where Darren was at.
Right. You can, if you need a little like spiritual direction in that regard, I might be able to offer something.
Yeah.
And then I forgot the other thing I was going to say. I forgot the other point. What you were just saying, Mark. But yeah. Oh, I was going to say, that someone mentions how, with the star being a sign, that there are natural signs. Matthew uses that. That comes up in Matthew more. That idea of nature as a sign. I mean, I think of Matthew 6 has the don't worry passage. Looking at the flowers of the field or the birds of the air. And that sort of thing. And of course, you have, like in Mark, you have at the death of Jesus and at the resurrection of at these moments, there's manifestations from nature of God's presence there. So this looking to, because I mean, what you're saying, I mean, that this is kind of what the Magi do. They see this sign in the sky. They see this star, and so they're ready to follow it. They're ready to go. They're ready to get out. They're ready to see what it's calling them to. Yeah.
And of course there's risk in that, but there's risk in that. I mean, but we just have to be open to to possibilities.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, and I wonder if they, I wonder at what point they realized they had stepped in it. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder if they, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if, I wonder if they just assumed, that if they went to the palace, and said, where is the one born king of the Jews, that, maybe Herod just had a kid, or maybe, maybe there's, maybe some, maybe something's happened, but whenever it's like, hold on, when did this happen? What are you trying to say? They must have realized pretty quickly that they, what they'd done wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that juxtaposition too, Marcy, like that in 11 and 12 at the end, there's like the paying homage. They open their chests, they offer gifts, they have a dream, and they go home a different way. I mean, it's like kind of, you could probably create a, like a some kind of spiritual discipline out of that whole,
Mm-hmm.
out of that kind of process,
Yeah. You talked about, they kind of, giving up that opportunity to join Herod's power circle.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think when they got to the house and saw the baby, they were thinking, "Oh, the King of the Jews"? So this
Right.
this is where, if I'm wondering if they
Yeah.
were like, "Oh, okay, this is this is a turn up." I've heard that said in the this is quite a turn up.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering kind of what they were thinking. Like, "Oh, this is the
Yeah.
king." Okay.
Well, the storyteller gives us that kind of added dimension, that the star reappears. You know what I mean? Like so they get excited because the star reappears. Now,
Right.
what they thought about where the star led them, it's hard to say.
Yeah, hard to say. Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's interesting. Wow.
Well, it's interesting too because they set out, and they don't really have a clear destination until the star,
Star,
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the risk. That's part of the risk.
Right.
I mean,
And of course, the Carter, who wants to emphasize kind of the center and the margins, also talks about how all of the scribes that were called in, the chief priests and scribes get called in. They know where the child is.
Yeah.
They've just heard that there's been evidence that the child has been born, but they don't go. You know what I mean? They don't leave. They don't leave their cushy jobs. They let the Magi go do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you figured. Yeah. That's funny.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you would think, if your whole thing was just studying this and knowing it and and waiting, you might. I mean, not that you would want to. Not that it was easy to openly cross Herod. I mean, he was a pretty,
bad dude.
He didn't mess about.
Yeah.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, they know where their bread is buttered, and that shows that what's more important to them is to maintain status quo. Because we can't take that risk either.
Right. Yeah, just gonna see if anything.
Yeah, I'm going through some of Carter here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I think
I didn't get a chance to. Our other book that you recommended.
Yeah.
Anna Case Winters. I hadn't had a chance to go through her reading of it.
Well, I have I have a quote here from her that.
Okay.
I'll one thing I'll say is that another theme for if people are trying to teach or preach about it, I think that people bring up a lot is that element of joy.
Yes.
When they saw the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. And they get overwhelmed with joy prior to even even entering and then they enter the house. So it's kind of interesting. interesting order,
Yeah.
If you add that to that whole progression
like
we were just talking about with
almost like they anticipated the possibility.
Right. Yeah. Well, all their anticipation and all their excitement comes from their reading of these signs, right?
Right.
That must have meant something to them, because they go there with the intention of worshiping. They set out on the whole journey with the intention of worshiping. And so when they find the spot that they've been led to, they're overwhelmed with joy. They do worship.
Yeah.
They open their chests, their chests. They offer the gifts, and they have a dream, and which meant that they must have stayed over, right? I mean, I don't know, or maybe they had the dream before they were ever there. I don't know. Here's what Anna Case Winter says. On the one hand, there are these wise men, nameless strangers and aliens, who have come a great distance following that star of wonder. They come in an attitude of seeking. They are prepared to do homage, bringing gifts fit for a king. On the other hand, there is King Herod, who is no stranger or alien, but one who sits in the seat of power. What he seeks is to secure his power in his place. He is frightened and scheming, killing innocent babes in his rage. So just that juxtaposition again. Of these.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Well, because I guess that's why I thought it would be interesting to kind of go back and do the passage that we left behind last week, because my power my computer just died anyway, really. But I do think Carter kind of raises this, is that the two you have in chapter 1, the introduction of the descendant of King David, or the one who will follow in King David's steps. And then in 2, you have, it starts with King Herod, and you have kind of a depiction of who King Herod is, on these two sides, and that it's an interesting way to open, to open the gospel, the back and forth there.
Right.
I think one of the things that he raised too, and I think I pointed out in one of my questions, is that they come to worship, but the worship takes place out in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't take place in the palace in Jerusalem.
Right.
You have the juxtaposition of the folks in the power structure are worried about maintaining their power. The worship takes place in the middle of nowhere with marginalized people. I think I asked the question. I think I asked the question: do we need to rethink some theologies that fail to embrace those on the outside looking in? Because they were outsiders.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. And I think that that's what that's something that so that's
Right.
Yeah, they're not in the temple, they're not in the, they're out there in somewhere in Bethlehem, somewhere in a house, somewhere in a house in Bethlehem.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess that
I think we talk about this all the time here.
It
comes up over and over again.
And I think I was thinking that, and also that we have folks. There are folks that are seeking, but are we so busy trying to maintain the status quo that we ignore the folks that really are seeking?
Right. Well, I think. Well, I don't know. I'm thinking about this. It's interesting, like the in a way, like these magi are seeking, right? They're seeking this. They're seeking this king. They're finding out through this star. They have this kind of idea, whatever it is, and of course, they go to the place where they're supposed to be able to find, religious leaders, political leaders, whatever, but they're busy doing something else. Like
Right.
they're not interested in, they're not interested in something new happening,
Right.
or something, something like that. They're interested in maintaining what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that I think we do that. And I think that I think it goes back to that idea of dreaming and imagination and what we're trying to, like, what are we actually trying to build, or what are we trying to keep? I don't know, what does the thing look like that we want to manifest, or whatever. And I think that some people that are seeking, they probably could help us imagine that better than we can, because somehow we just have gotten stuck.
That's Mark. Part of our ordination worship service, we have to answer some questions, and one of the questions, either for elders and deacons and ministers of word and sacrament, will you serve the people with energy, intelligence, imagination, and love? And I have that. I always cut that question out, and keep it. When I was working in Richmond and now here, that is the question that I continue to ask myself. And for me, the big word there is imagination.
Imagination.
Is where, that's what our call is to, and again, it takes risk, it takes relationship, it takes a lot. Just, it's not something that just can be like, oh yeah. You have to have space for it. You have to have time for it. And I don't know that we always do that right.
Right. Yeah.
But it's so important.
And I think that's the problem with the power structure. The power structure doesn't create space for themselves. They're too busy caught up in maintaining their own status quo. But that's an intentional process. The process of creating space to be open to possibilities, be open
to dream and imagine. To dream and imagine. Yeah. I won't be able to quote it word for word. But I remember reading a poem about a guy that said he didn't trust people who didn't. It was just because he said because if people that like, oh, I'm going to stay up all night and work, I only need 2 hours of sleep. And he said, I don't sleep because they're not open. Because you're not open to dreaming. You're trying to do it all yourself, and it's when you are often asleep that you get that dream, that sign. And I don't trust people who don't sleep.
Yeah. It was, and I think what's so crazy is I think sometimes our society and our culture, we think we have the stigma sometimes on folks who are dreamers. They're weirdos. They're eccentric or whatever. I don't know if that's because we're too locked in or we're too distracted, but that does happen. That we castigate dreamers. We give them a bad name. They're weirdos. They're undesirables. But
or we elevate people who made a bunch of money with their different idea, like that's who we call dreamers, right. Dreamer is someone who, decided that a tennis shoe should look like this, and now they are wealthy, and so you should be like them because they're the dreamers. It's like, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're right, Darren. You're right. Yeah.
Because I think we're always either funneling people into those kind of the dream has to come with some kind of, you can dream as long as you're going to like get some kind of profit.
Get a pot of gold.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, like,
oh wow, yeah.
And basically it's just like,
yeah,
it's kind of another way of saying work hard,
Yeah.
The
dream has to lead to a pot of gold instead of leading to transformation of transformation of the world that we're in.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think maybe next week, if anybody's around, we might do we might just continue on with this chapter and do the slaughter of the innocents and the dreams, the rest of the dreams here.
That's next week. Oh
yeah.
Yeah. It's not really. I think it does come up as a lectionary text at certain points.
Does it? Wow.
So the Magi text, is that the text for this Sunday?
No, the text for this Sunday is the Matthew 1:18 through 25.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Magi text is January
Epiphany.
Okay.
Yeah, so usually you read it on January 6th if you have a service then.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can also, some people throw it in either, the first week after Christmas or I'm going to do this text on the 1st.
Which one? The 18th?
The Epiphany text I'm going to do on the 1st.
You're doing it on the 1st?
Yeah, as an Epiphany text, just pre-Epiphany.
Okay.
And then, because Christmas is on Sunday.
Right.
So, and then the next week, I think, is the baptism of Jesus. Sunday.
Yeah, I'm preaching on that. I'm preaching that Sunday, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And I know we won't meet again before that. I'll struggle on my own.
We'll check on you.
I'll struggle.
Yeah, because what did we say? We're
skipping when I can't remember when we're supposed to go come back.
Between Christmas
yeah,
and
New
Year's.
Yeah, because I didn't think I put anything on here till like the 18th.
Yeah,
or something like that.
So we're skipping between Christmas and New Year's, and then the week after that too.
I have it actually. I have it in my notebook. We don't meet again until January 18th. Yeah. Well, yeah, the 18th for the text for the 22nd. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Now I'm just wondering what
And when do we move back to Wednesday? I'm trying to remember when that was.
Monday.
I think hopefully at the end of February. I think I'll be done with that.
And in February, okay. I have the thing you sent. I just didn't mark down the days.
Okay.
So January
on Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe.
Karen, are you sticking straight with the lectionary? You're gonna do most.
I will once we get out of Advent.
Yeah.
I mean, once we get out of Christmas, I'll probably stick with it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm wondering though.
What's that?
Go ahead. I was just wondering how. Go ahead.
No, I was just wondering why I waited so long. I'm wondering if I thought that there's a different text, for the 15th. I don't know what the.
What is?
I know I got it planned out on a piece of paper.
John.
That's probably what I was. John. That's probably what I was thinking, is that it would be, a different text. But I might have changed that. I'll see what we do, because the 4th might be a little early for the 8th, but we might come back on the 11th if people are
that would be
ready. And because I think I know I planned out from January 8th through Lent for myself.
Wow.
The next thing that I want to do. So, and I think I got I'm pretty sure I put a Matthew text on the 15th. I just don't know which one I did because it's
okay.
not in the lectionary, I don't think.
It's not in the lectionary. Okay.
But
how is your church in since you did Lent, you did with Sanctified Art, how are they doing with Advent also?
people really like it. They like the poems, there's like
Yeah.
poems, they like the liturgy stuff that they do.
Yeah.
We haven't emphasized the art stuff as much in worship as we have in the past. But and I don't know exactly how many people are doing the devotional. We haven't been doing it together. A bunch of people took them, but I don't know how many people are doing it.
Yeah.
So,
Are you gonna do the Star Words?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
That's a good question. Yeah.
That's all Epiphany talk, Mark. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
There's another resource.
I'm in a dark one. Okay.
For Sanctified Art, and they do a lot of different, really good stuff, different stuff. And for Epiphany, and I used it last year.
You said
Sanctified Art.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that?
One of the writers lives in Richmond, actually. It's a worship resource. With liturgy, art, music. They do sermon notes. But they focus mostly on, I don't think they do anything other than Advent and Lent.
Okay.
And typically they've done lectionary, but this year for Advent they chose different texts that lend themselves to the idea of story, which was really interesting. They tend to be on the more progressive side. I shared with Darren that the pastor at the Methodist church that I worked at before I came back home used it 2 years ago, used the Lent text, their Lent bundle, they call it a bundle, and she got so many it was terrible. People were coming to her office because they talk about Black Lives Matter, intersections of race and gender, all that stuff. And people wrote her really ugly letters, and somebody came to the office and said, Black Lives Matter, it's socialism and it's heresy. It was just crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so shows you where their heads are at. Okay.
Well, this was Chesterfield, right?
Yes. Well, Henrico.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good resource. But for Epiphany, they have Star Words, which you select a word and you pray on that word all year and ask God to give you a sign or maybe a dream about what that word means for your life and your walk with God. So that's one of the resources they have.
I got a couple little sample things I can send to you, Mark. I'll try to find them.
Okay.
I always end up losing that.
Don't forget, Marcy, to send me that link about the
Black liturgies. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, y'all. Well,
you can't go without telling us how you've been feeling about the World Cup.
Well, I was disappointed that Morocco did not beat France today.
I know, me too.
But I'm sure the joke has been made that another African team won.
Right. I love that.
Yeah, but because most of France's team is African in one way or another. But I don't know. I'm hoping that I hope Messi wins. That'd be good for him. Stay in solidarity with the South Americans.
Right. That's right.
Not that any of them really like the Argentinians, but.
Are you thinking? Because I was actually thinking about. I don't know. They've not announced really how it's going to work in 26. But the fact that it'll be spread over 3 countries, I guess. Canada, us, and Mexico. I'm like, okay, how do you get a ticket? Yeah, how do you get a ticket for that? That's wild.
So
put different groups in
different
the United
States. It's going to be at one.
The 3 nations are hosting.
They're calling it North America. They're going to have it in North America. So
wow. Okay.
So Canada, Mexico.
and us are
I figure
hosting
that,
the World Cup.
one of them's got to be in Chicago or DC or one of those areas. I would imagine one.
Yeah.
But I mean, when they go to other countries, though,
Yeah.
like they usually are in different cities. This one's been weird because it's been really centralized in different stadiums, but
Right.
but usually they're all over the place, so
Okay.
this is probably a little broader than they
okay.
normally
Mm.
go, but yeah. But I imagine if it was
Yeah.
in a bigger country, we'll see. It'll be interesting.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Should be
see
fun.
how it goes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okie doke. Well,
all right, yeah. Is it snowing up there yet, Darren?
we had a little bit of snow last week, I think, or maybe it was early.
You didn't get a piece of this blizzard that they're having now, right? Yeah.
No, we haven't had anything that's like stayed longer than like a day, or or like it was gone by the evening or something like that. We haven't had anything real yet. So
okay.
But it was like rainy and cold today though, which is even worse, just nasty. So
yeah, we getting cold rain tomorrow.
That's
yeah.
We'll be
all right, well, good
tomorrow.
talking to y'all. Oh my, yeah.
That's for you, and don't be 60 here.
Oh yeah, we're getting 60 tomorrow. That's what they said. So we can't decide.
All right.
We'll see what happens December 21st. See y'all later.
All right, see y'all.